Some people are just meant to be the support structure, the scaffolding that helps the real visionaries reach the sky. The words echoed in the cavernous hall, amplified and slick. On stage, the spotlight caught the smug curve of Zane's smile as he held the gleaming award, an acrylic obelisk that represented 18 months of my life. The applause was a tidal wave of noise, but all I could hear was the crisp fold of the gala program in my hand. He hadn't even mentioned my name. I waited until the reception, finding him by the champagne tower. He was holding court, retelling the story of his genius. As he took a breath, I stepped into the circle. I believe you have something of mine. Our story began not in a hall of mirrors and applause, but in a dusty, overcrowded design meetup in a converted warehouse. Zane was magnetic, all grand pronouncements and restless energy. I was the quiet one in the corner, the one who actually knew how to use the software he name-dropped. We're a perfect match, he'd said. His vision, my execution. We would build an agency. I remember one night, 3 months in, sprawled on the floor of our tiny co-working space. We were fueled by cold pizza and the thrill of a breakthrough on a brand identity for a boutique hotel. We passed a Wacom tablet back and forth, building on each other's sketches until the sun came up, painting the city skyline in bruised purples and soft orange. It felt like a true partnership. First crack appeared a month later. In a pitch meeting, Zane presented a logo concept I'd spent a week perfecting. He used the word I 6 times. I created, I decided, I envisioned. When the client praised it, he glanced at me with a magnanimous nod as if I were a bright intern. I told myself he was the front man. That was his job. I was the engine. That was mine. The golden period lasted nearly a year. We landed the Kessler Tower project, a massive, career-defining architectural branding gig. We celebrated at a restaurant I couldn't afford, per se, overlooking Central Park. Zane ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than my rent and made a toast. To the visionaries. Then the balance began to shift, slowly at first, then all at once. My workweek swelled to 80 hours, refining digital mock-ups in Figma, coding interactive displays, and perfecting the custom typography. Zane was doing the networking. Long lunches at Cipriani, press events, and gallery openings. He handled the finances, insisting it was better to have one point of contact for the clients. My payments, once prompt, started to lag. Just a cash flow issue, he'd say with a wave of his hand. The Kessler money is tied up in escrow. Be patient. The discovery came by accident. I was trying to access our shared Google Drive for an old file when a red banner appeared. You no longer have access. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I remembered an old, direct link to a subfolder I'd bookmarked months ago. It still worked. And there, in a folder he'd mistakenly left accessible, was another folder. It was named Legacy. Inside was a parallel universe. Contracts with new freelancers, NDAs I'd never seen, and a pitch deck for his new agency, Zane Creative. The portfolio was beautiful. It featured every project we had ever worked on together. My name, my contributions, had been surgically removed. I spent the next 3 weeks in a state of controlled panic, a quiet, methodical fury building behind my ribs. I hired a data recovery specialist to pull deleted email drafts from my hard drive. I contacted 2 of the freelancers from the Legacy folder, under the guise of a reference check. They both told me the same story. Zane had told them I was a junior designer who had quit months ago, unable to handle the pressure. He was framing my erasure as my own failure. The breaking point was the AIGA Design Awards. Zane told me he could only get 1 ticket, but that he'd fight for me. I knew he was lying. Bought my own ticket, a nosebleed seat in the back. When they announced the Kessler Tower project as the winner for Digital Experience of the Year, my heart hammered against my ribs. I watched him walk onto the stage alone. He thanked the client. He thanked the awards committee. He thanked his parents. Then he looked out at the adoring crowd. Some people are just meant to be the support structure, the scaffolding that helps the real visionaries reach the sky. I couldn't have done it without my assistant. Thank you. The applause sounded like roaring static. I saw faces in the crowd I knew, colleagues, collaborators, people I considered friends, all of them on their feet clapping for him. The hurt was a physical blow, but it lasted only a second. It was replaced by something cold, clear, and absolute. A plan began to form, silent and sharp. As he held the award up, the stage lights glinted off the watch on his wrist. Vintage Omega Speedmaster, the exact one I'd pointed out in a shop window months before. He'd sighed and said maybe one day, when they landed a whale. I checked my records that night. He'd bought it the same week he claimed the client hadn't paid our $72,000 invoice. It was the detail that would undo him. The next morning, I called Ms. Wallace, a veteran intellectual property lawyer whose name I found in a trade journal. It was sharp, expensive, and utterly unimpressed by Zane's brand of charm. Her advice was simple: stay silent. Let him think you're broken. The arrogant don't look for traps. The legal prep cost me over $15,000 from my savings, an act of faith in my own memory and meticulous record-keeping. One afternoon, a saccharine email from Zane landed in my inbox, asking if I needed freelance work, that he'd be happy to throw me a bone. I drafted a furious reply, my fingers shaking. Then I deleted it, took a deep breath, and wrote back, "Thanks, I'll keep that in mind." Ms. Wallace and I assembled our arsenal. He had the timestamped Figma files, which showed a 95% contribution history from my IP address. We had 43 unanswered emails about the missing invoices. We had text messages where Zane admitted I was the lead creative on Kessler. We had sworn affidavits from the 2 freelancers he'd lied to. And then, the ironic coincidence, the killer proof. Searching an old hard drive for a file, I found a screen recording I made for a software tutorial 18 months prior. In the background, clear as day, was Zane on a phone call. I could hear him say, "Don't worry, she'll never know. The copyright is all under my LLC. The intellectual property is mine." I had forgotten it even existed. We set our trap. Zane was launching his new agency with a lavish party at a gallery in Chelsea, a solo show of his work. Kessler Project was the centerpiece. We let him print the invitations. We let him pay the caterers. The gallery was a study in sterile white, filled with the exact people whose approval Zane craved: investors, journalists, and potential clients. The Kessler Project played on a loop across 3 massive screens. He was in his element, a glass of champagne in one hand, gesturing expansively with the other. I walked up to him as he was charming the editor of Metropolis magazine. "Zane, we need to talk about your Kessler Tower presentation." He gave me a pitying look. "Oh, still holding a grudge, really? This is my night. We can talk later." "No," I said, my voice even. "We'll talk now." I handed him a thin manila envelope. Inside were the printouts of the Figma logs and our original profit-sharing agreement. His smile faltered. He saw the editor watching, her expression shifting from polite interest to sharp curiosity. He began to stammer, something about a misunderstanding, creative differences. That's when I pulled out my phone. I didn't play the recording. I didn't have to. "I have the recording from last May," I said, just loud enough for him to hear. "One where you talk about the copyright." The color drained from his face. The bravado, the charm, it all collapsed into raw panic. He knew. "My lawyer is waiting for your call. You have 24 hours to sign the settlement, or this goes very public tomorrow." The next day was a quiet storm of ignored calls and frantic texts from our mutual friends. The gallery show was postponed indefinitely due to technical difficulties. Word travels fast in our industry. Zane's lead investor pulled out. The editor from Metropolis ran a small, devastatingly cryptic piece about the industry's ghosts, the brilliant creatives whose work is often co-opted by charismatic frontmen. Zane signed. The settlement was for $110,000, the $72,000 he'd stolen, plus damages and my legal fees. Terms also required him to remove the Kessler Project and 3 others from his portfolio and issue a formal public clarification on his LinkedIn page crediting me as the lead designer. He did, and then his profile went dark. 6 months later, I saw him again, not in person, but on that same website. He was a brand strategist for a mid-level firm in a city I'd never heard of. His profile picture was a cheap, poorly lit headshot, the background a beige cubicle wall. The Omega watch was gone. I used the settlement to start my own studio. It's small, just a desk in a sunny corner of my new apartment with a view of the park. My clients respect me. They pay me on time. The earned calm is a quiet, steady hum beneath my days. Last week, a new client asked me about my creative process. I told them I believe great work requires a solid foundation, not just scaffolding to help someone else reach the sky. I don't think about Zane anymore. I'm too busy building my own.